Yeah.
because all the people outside in the front.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Thursday in Agile Testing Days, reporting from Potsdam, Germany, where I keep chasing and having the great privilege of talking to awesome presenters, gurus, or figures in the testing world. Today, I have our amiga Fiona. Fiona, welcome.
Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to have you here. I'm really happy that you had a chance to come and share your knowledge and experience with us. Really happy to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much. To start off this conversation, would you mind sharing with the audience who you are, what you do, what you have done, why are you special?
I can start with a bit of background.
Hmm.
Um, I've been in tech since 1978.
Wow.
I started as a technical writer, the pioneer technical writer in the company I was in, where I was expected to understand what the job was and invent it. So,
Oh.
so I've been very lucky in my career because my next job uh, was as a tester, where I was not quite the pioneer, but the only tester in a product company, and almost pre waterfall. It was waterfall, but we were embedded. I mean, I was embedded with the developers. So I had two responsibilities. One was continuously testing the product.
Wait, embedded with the developers, that goes against waterfall a little bit.
No, it doesn't.
That's really
No,
cool.
it doesn't.
Huh.
No, there are a lot of myths about waterfall. When agile came in, and agile practitioners were really agile evangelists,
Yeah.
were really pushing everything about waterfall was bad and there was never anything good, and everybody was an enemy. But in fact, I worked with the developers very closely.
Uh huh.
I spent a lot of my time working with the product, and I'd see something,
Sorry
and,
that I
and
interrupted on your story, but I was like, oh, what? Really?
yeah,
Developers embedded? Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
So I'd see something.
Hmm.
So I'd say, okay, this is in the lot processing system. It was a manufacturing execution system. So this is in lot management. So I'll go talk to the guy who's head of lot management, or the woman who's head of lot management. And they had time, and we'd sit down, we'd look at the code together. Uh, yes, it's a defect.
Hmm.
I'll go away and report it, or not, or it's not a defect, or maybe it's something we can fix quickly. So we look at it together, and maybe we fix it right there.
Oh, that's
So
beautiful.
so I had a great introduction to the testing world, and I was very much part of the team. And then when we did releases, which this is where waterfall really comes in,
Hmm.
was only once a year or every 6 months. Uh, then it was my job to organize everybody to test:
Whoa.
the developers, the customer service people, and so on.
Were you doing more on those days? Was automated? Was manual? What type of testing was
Remember
that?
what we're talking about. I joined that company in 1983.
Uh huh.
1984, nobody had automated testing, but our system was written in Fortran. I said it was a manufacturing execution system. It was marketed, sold to semiconductor manufacturers, and
Wow.
we had some big ticket customers. This is a small Canadian company, some very big ticket customers. We had 6 Motorola plants by the time I left. We had a Seiko plant. We had uh, so Siemens,
Yeah, the
a
top
whole
notch on
lot.
those days. I
That's
remember.
right. The people who wrote the code also wrote a scripting language,
Uh huh.
and the scripting language had opportunities. It developed over time, and became more flexible. So we had things like variables, where we could slot in lot numbers, or dates,
Ah,
or whatever. So there was a lot of flexibility in it, and I, of course, learned to do coding with the scripting language as well as
because on those
as well
days
as
you
this.
had to, right? It was important as a tester to kind of integrate those type of knowledge with the coding, and
Yeah, absolutely.
you were closer. There was not like this big division, tester
Yeah,
versus developers.
yeah. So then I was with that group of people, with that company, for 10 years in various different roles. I mean, I also had a quality assurance management director role at one point. Um, then I went to work for a consulting company. And I get there, and we're going out to clients, Oh, the other thing was this product company, we had a bug management system written in house using an Oracle database, which
Oh.
is serious overkill. But that's what we had. Those were the
Mm-hmm.
tools we had available to us. And so we wrote it, and we, with my input and everybody's input, we made this great bug management system. So I get there in a consulting company. We're going out to clients. There's no test automation.
Yeah.
There's no bug reporting. I mean, IBM's idea, or my company's idea, LGS's idea of bug reporting was, well, maybe we can put a Lotus Notes database together. I mean, Lotus Notes isn't even a database.
Mm-hmm. That's like
So it felt so primitive,
uh-huh.
but that was the state of the art then. So
Wow.
that was really interesting too. So I had worked at this point 13, 14 years in product companies. So I
Uh-huh.
started in library automation. I'd gone on to manufacturing execution. Then I get to be in consulting. They call you a consultant, but often you're a tester for hire,
Yeah.
or sometimes I was a QA manager for hire. But I was getting a huge exposure to business domains, right? Insurance, banking, retail, warehousing,
It's a great
working in a distribution center.
QA. You learn all the actual practices that you're involved in, and you start to get all
Absolutely,
the
absolutely, and it's so much fun because you're constantly learning. You're getting to poke your nose into what other people are doing. And
Not that they always enjoy it, but
Yeah.
you get to have fun.
Yeah. So I had from starting with deep experience, I got to broaden my experience,
Yeah.
and that was also very cool. And then at some point, I decided IBM bought the company I worked for. I worked for IBM for 3 years, and I got to work on some really cool stuff. And to do them justice, they understood that I understood what I was doing, and they gave me a lot of freedom to manage. By then, I was managing testing. Quite often, I was managing testing at the program level on multi-project programs.
Oh.
So that's really, if you look at it, my experience is almost entirely with big projects. That manufacturing execution was 10 million lines of Fortran code. I worked with big systems. I worked with big projects for big programs. I came at one point after I went independent in 2007. I came to work on a big government project in the UK for a year as the program test manager.
Can you? Is it shareable? What was the project? Or
It
what?
was fire control. It was
cool.
canceled by the government. I was the last test manager on it in the last year of the program. There were lots of reasons it was canceled, and there were parliamentary reports on this and parliamentary inquiries because, of course, it was a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, it lost $500 million. I won't say it lost. $500 million pounds were sunk into it. Only 80 million of which was the IT part, because they were also building big purpose-built control centers and so on.
Infrastructure
So
and
it's
all
very
that. Right?
yeah. But I had a team of 80 testers.
Oh.
We were doing various things, including going out and evaluating the testing of our vendors, because we had 13 external vendors across Europe and so on.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
So, well, we were integrating 54 or 55, I don't quite remember, applications.
And I mean, by then you already had like, if I'm running numbers, over 20 years of experience. You already had a lot of fun around this. How was the transition into? You were already a senior, very experienced tester, QA, and probably you saw many of the automation technologies being born in those periods, and you experienced all the revolutions that happened. How was the leap into conferencing and being on stages and sharing the knowledge with people? When did that happen? How did that happen?
Started internally
Uh huh.
at IBM.
Oh.
Actually, that's not quite true. I did start with one external conference in Toronto, and it was an international conference that came to Toronto for the first time, and I did a talk there. But I knew when IBM bought the consulting company I worked for that I was going to go independent.
Oh.
So I started
Building.
consciously building a profile. writing articles. By then, I really wanted to write articles too, and making presentations at conferences and so on. And a big part of that, actually, I in 2001, coincidentally with 9/11,
I was gonna ask.
I was in Albuquerque when
Ah.
9/11 happened, taking the Jerry Weinberg's problem-solving leadership course. Um, from that class, and the co-presenters there were Jerry and Naomi Carton. From that class, I learned about experiential learning and experiential workshops,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that this is how I want to learn. This is how I want to teach. So I started. They were involved, as other people were involved, in the AYE conference, amplifying your effectiveness, which was at that point once a year in Phoenix, Arizona.
Was that a QA conference or general?
No, general. It was very much a consultants conference, in
Oh,
fact.
cool.
And it was all about, as Jerry Weinberg's work was all about, the human side of software development. And I realized from my earliest days as a technical writer, I was interested in the human side of software development much more than I am in the technical side.
Mm.
Uh, the human dynamics, the impacts of what we do. So, make a very long story short.
No, no, no. But it's interesting all
I-
the elements that put together your.
I went to the AYE conference many times. I can't remember how many. I began working with Jerry sometimes as his assistant and learning from him how to do experiential workshops. So that's how I do my workshops, very much as experiential.
Even nowadays is.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because I really believe in learning by doing,
Yeah.
and most of my workshops focus on the human side. So I will do, a heuristics workshop. That's probably the closest to a technical workshop that I do.
Mm-hmm.
I've done test, and I do test strategy as well. But again, by doing. So when I teach heuristics, I don't put up a whole lot of heuristics. These are the things other people have come up with, and you can find them on the internet.
Uh-huh.
I get people to play with children's problem-solving games in teams
Mm-hmm.
and develop their own heuristics, understand their own thinking patterns and how to move those forward.
How do you think that affects? I mean, I'm digging a little bit on these tutorials and your style that you learned and you saw that there was a good effect, good impact, and I have a feeling it had like uh, harmony with your own way of thinking or what you saw. How do you think this affects, or how do you change the life of the people attending the tutorial? What did they come out with after experiencing that?
You never know.
So it's always different.
Yeah. And that's really cool. The thing I think that I learned this from Jerry, but I also learned it by seeing. People learn what they come prepared to learn.
Huh.
So the conference will say to you, what are your learning objectives for this tutorial? And you say, well, it would be great if they came out knowing how to do blah. So say I'm teaching learning to say no,
Mm-hmm.
which is a half-day workshop that I do. Sometimes
Oh.
that one's very hard to sell because most managers do not want their people to learn to say no. But say I'm doing that one. I could say, well, I want people to come out of it knowing some strategies for saying no when that's the right answer for them. But do I know that they're going to actually internalize that? No, of course I don't. I do
Mhm.
my best to give them the experience of it and to give them the experience of it with various challenges. But I can't guarantee that's what they're going to do, of course.
It's very interesting because it reminds me a lot of this phrase, like the master appears when the student is ready, like what they are ready to assimilate to get out from the training.
Right. And of course, you need to be flexible when you're doing a workshop.
Hmm.
I go into a workshop with an agenda that I've worked out, and I think it's going to, I'm going to take, say, 20 minutes for this exercise, and we're going to do a debrief of another 20 minutes.
Mhm.
I always have a debrief after an exercise, so people have a chance to share what they've learned with other groups, but also to consolidate what they learned. So we do a lot of debriefing in the course of a workshop, and then at the end of the day, we do an overall debrief of the workshop.
I'm personally taking notes. That's very good. I'm I'm also learning.
But depending on how a workshop is going, I might change the agenda. I mean, I can see the energy is in this direction. So let's go with that. Let's bring in another exercise that will help people pursue that direction.
Uh huh.
Now, if I think it's an unhealthy direction,
Yeah,
then
you're like whoa,
then
whoa,
I'm
whoa.
going to guide away from that.
It's interesting how much is. It surprises me because in general we are among IT people. I think that we testers are the odd ones from the group in IT, but it's it jumps at me quite a bit that it's lots of feeling. You read the room, you experience, and you teach them how to find themselves, get this human side connection. What are the biggest elements on the human side that you think are different? Because everybody's like fix the schedule, fix everything, and
Well, with Agile, of course, one of the most
ah,
important elements is collaboration.
uh-huh.
How to work with other people, how to manage yourself in order to work with other people, to manage your own responses or reactions, and how to lead, particularly for testers. When testers, when you're the only tester embedded in a team, you're not going to be able to do all the testing. You're going to need to coach other people in doing this testing, and you're going to have to lead on testing activities almost certainly. So every tester is now a leader
Mm-hmm.
and needs to understand the qualities of leadership. What is it that will inspire people to follow you or
Yeah.
to work with you, to collaborate with you? So the workshop that I do on leadership, I call inspiring testing.
It's a. I mean, I never thought of it in that angle, but it makes sense as a tester. Sadly, many testers are like not leaders. They become kind of the enemy, holding the project, and like
Yeah, well,
thou shall not pass into production. And but being leaders, like guiding and helping and integrating and becoming like an active member of the team that is like propelling, not just stopping. I think it's super important. How what gave you this like insight that because probably you can tell there are some other testers that have the total opposite idea of what a tester should be. What was this aha moment for you that was like, oh, we should flow?
I don't know in a aha moment. I can't really pin one down, but I do know that when I was a test manager, and I was at some point I was a corporate test manager within the consulting company, but mostly I was project or program test manager. And my job is to help bring that project to a successful conclusion.
Hmm.
Of course, I'm concerned about the quality, but I mean, you used to look at these horrible documents, and you know, somebody would write what they called a test strategy, and it would land on your desk with a thump, and
And this thick
it would be
test
50
strategy.
pages of stuff, none of which was strategy. So um, to get away from that sort of thing, but you would see in those things what are our stopping criteria. We will stop testing if blah blah and blah. Well, no, um, we're going to work around whatever it is. We're
Hmm.
going to do what we can to keep moving, to keep adding value. No, we'll stop and we'll sit on our hands until it's just the way we want it. Like, this isn't going to happen. So I mean, that was the kind of test manager I was. Let's get this going.
Yeah.
I did once advise that we stop testing. It was on a retail project where some of the software was simply not complete, and they were throwing it over the wall to us, and it was bouncing all over the place. So I said, look,
Mm.
my testers know the requirements better than anybody. So let's stop. Let's sit. Let's pair it. This is long before people were pairing all the time. Let's pair a tester with a developer the whole team, and they'll help with the requirements. They'll help get the code finished. We will not log any defects. We will just get this done. And then when we feel comfortable that we've done that, sure, then give it to us and we'll test it.
Get back to the rolling. It's very funny because I think that you get that perspective, you feel it because you have been on both sides of the situation. Like you are a team lead, you are a project lead. You have to kind of help that everything flows, and at the same time, you have been also a lot in the quality side. And I think that's another type of experience that many people in QA need. Kind of like, yeah, I need to come up with this product, release it into production one way or the other,
Yeah.
and it's not just halting, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was never not on the quality side, if you like. But maybe it comes from working for a services company too. So my company is in there to
Mhm.
get your project done for you or with you. So of course that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, because if you wouldn't be selling too many services if it's like, yeah, I'm gonna just crash your project and not let it go.
Yeah, exactly.
It's it.
Exactly. And there were all these, I think they're myths when agile swept the world, that there was antagonism between developers and testers, and that was something I absolutely would not tolerate on my team.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
apart from anything else, you wouldn't have a job if there weren't bugs. So
Thank you. Yeah. I
so
totally
you
agree.
work together.
Because it's not
It's not somebody's fault. There's no blame here.
it's
This
everybody's
is
baby.
about code being developed
Yeah.
and a product being developed out of this.
And I love that perspective because you are not letting this. I don't know, when I see in social media like these memes, the testers against developers, and it's like,
So boring.
really, people. uh,
It's boring and it's counterproductive. It's
it's
not getting us anywhere.
very much counterproductive. It gets you, your team, and the other team, the developers, or if you're on the other side, just bad feelings, just like
Yeah. So you don't grow your skills. You don't grow as a person,
it does, things will not flow. And
and your product doesn't grow. So what's the point?
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's another very interesting because getting like the big picture in mind, we are working as QA engineers, people, testers,
Yeah.
towards the goal of releasing a good product,
Yep.
coming with that product, not just yeah, I'm just halting and defect, that's my end goal. Yeah, it's to
At the
get
same
a.
time, I believe in logging defects
No, it's
at the
important,
right point, and I believe in keeping a history of defects, which I know lots
but
of
that's
teams
not the end
don't do.
game.
But that's not the end game. That's to help us identify issues that might be coming up,
Yeah.
or to help us put a new issue in context. So you have to have a reason for doing these things.
No, and because it becomes like a sinister incentive, I think it's a name, where the incentive is file as many bugs as possible just to.
Well,
Uh,
but people do what they are rewarded to do,
that's the
and
incentive.
if that's your incentive, you're going to do that.
Uh-huh.
So it does come down to management, and again, it comes down to the human side. It comes down to looking at and understanding what you are rewarding people for. If you think, oh, we're rewarding them for a quality product, but in fact you're paying them to get it out the door as fast as possible, that's what they're going to do.
I love also when, because probably you have heard from sources how you even change your voice, like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. And
Yeah, yeah.
it's
You
no,
must sit, in a
yeah,
particular
you're
way.
tight and
No,
like you that's.
I agree. You don't sit in a threatening way,
But when those type of
unless.
things
So
happen, that's
you do need to understand those things, and you do need to be able to use them in the
mhm.
right circumstances. I mean, if you're trying to get a message across. Anyway, there are various. I don't want to get
No,
into
no,
all of
no.
that stuff, but so actually, what I wanted to kind of add is that I'm not managing testing anymore. I haven't been doing it for a few years. Right now, what I'm really most interested in, apart from the workshops I do on things like leadership, is ethics,
Is what
is tech
ethics?
and tech ethics.
Ah.
So, and this kind of hit me one day. I was reading the paper, as you do in the morning, The Guardian online, and I read about this was early in the days of public AI, if you like. I read about a team who had developed an AI system that they said could identify whether somebody was gay or straight from a photograph.
Okay.
And my jaw dropped on the table. And I said, what could possibly go wrong? This is appalling. So I started to think about the impact of what we do
Yeah.
on the world. And really that's what I've been focusing on the last few years is a lot of what we do is wonderful. And as you know from Emily's keynote this morning, if you were in it, some of what we do is awful.
Yep.
And it hurts people's lives. It hurts their work. It could kill somebody depending on the nature of the software and so on. And I think we need to make human impact an important value in what we do. So I'm sort of pushing. I'm not going to get to add a fifth agile value, but when you look at the agile values, the four values, people and blah blah over processes and so on. I think there's a fifth value, and I think it trumps the others, and that's human impact. Because the agile values are fundamentally about the rights of practitioners and the rights of customers. But if your customer's an absolute shit and just wants to screw the world over, maybe you need to consider that there's something more important than your customer. Maybe you need to consider that you should not be defeating emissions control.
Yeah, I mean, seeing the whole picture, being mindful of the impacts and what could be. No emission control. Well, just don't pollute, don't do anything, and that's not good for humanity. And
so we need to stand a little bit outside sometimes. Our customers, even. Of course, we want to please our customers, but we
how
need
do you
to
balance that when the customer is asking for silly things and you're
That's
like,
so personal.
ah."
That is so personal and so dependent on your personal circumstances and your personal risk assessment.
Yeah.
Can I afford to do this? And if so, how do I do it? Because it's not easy.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work we all need to do in understanding how to resist sometimes.
That's a great point because you have to be ethic, mindful about yourself, about the customer, about the circumstance, and step back and like, okay, whole picture, what's going on here.
Yeah. So to me, that's kind of the major focus of my work now. I'm close to retirement. I've kind of retired from consulting. I've retired certainly from test management on difficult projects. I focus on workshops. I focus on kind of
Helping
conference
and giving
talks
back
and getting a message out about. So at this conference, I'm volunteering.
Yeah.
I'm not speaking. Maybe another time I'll be speaking. Who knows?
Around ethics and those efforts that you're doing right now, and also to ramp down a little bit this conversation, what recommendations would you give the audience? What are you trying them to learn and to do on your latest efforts and what you're trying to put out? I mean, you have a stage right now if you want to give back. And
I mean, a few years ago, I did a keynote at Nordic Testing, that I called 10 plus 1 commandments for an ethical tester. And I laid out what I did was I went and looked at codes of ethics. The British Computer Society has a code of ethics. The ACM, the Association of Computing Machinery in the US, has a code of ethics. They're very similar. ISTQB has one as well. And so I based the commandments on those codes of ethics.
Okay.
And I can't rhyme them all off by memory.
I mean.
but there are 10 things there about, considering. One of them is consider all the harms your software could do. Understand all of those things. One of them is understand your contractual obligations. Because to take an ethical stand, you may be violating your contractual obligations. You need to know what they are.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to violate them, you need to do it consciously.
Yeah.
So don't go blundering in the world, right? So it's a lot of it is about awareness.
Hmm.
But it's also about developing some skills. Develop the skill to say no
Okay.
when that's the right answer for you
Hmm.
and for the circumstance.
Yeah.
Develop the skill to tell people things they don't want to hear
Oh.
if those are the things that you personally believe they should hear. But of course, you also need to be pretty damn sure you're right.
It's an interesting skill, tough,
Yes,
that for
that's a
sure.
very difficult skill.
Yeah.
So you need to do proper
Uh-huh.
research and so on. You need to know what your escalation path is within a company. And if you're going to go beyond your company, you need to know all of the risks of that. Because whistleblowers typically are not,
Fully aware
A,
of all
nobody
the.
likes them,
Yeah.
and B, they often lose their jobs and they may never get another one. So you really do have to
Know what
do,
are you getting
you have
into?
to know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
So it's things like that. I have a PDF of the commandments. If people are interested, they're free to write to me.
Very much, because until you mentioned it, I knew that there were ethics something somewhere around, but never paid attention to it and didn't like consciously were like, oh, I should pay attention, learn them, or at least read them. I'm a tiny bit ashamed to say I've never ever even opened, or I'm like, I know they are there sometimes.
See, we call ourselves engineers,
Uh-huh.
or developers call themselves engineers, and sometimes people call themselves test engineers. Well, in my country, engineering, calling yourself as an engineer, it's a regulated profession. You don't get to be an engineer until you've passed certain tests. And as a practicing engineer, you must abide by the engineering code of ethics. And if you don't,
Yeah,
you can lose your license. You're
because
out of
it's a
there.
matter of
You're out of there.
license.
Yeah. So we're not licensed. We can go out there and call ourselves anything we like. It seems to me we need to take care in how we do that. And one way to do that is to understand codes of ethics that apply to us
Mhm.
and to abide by those.
And you left me with a cliffhanger here. What's the plus one? Because you had like
Document
10.
everything you see. If you're concerned
Uh huh.
about issues,
CYA?
document them. Oh, well, CYA, it is a CYA, but it's also evidence potentially. When I was working on,
CEA? Cover everyone's?
yeah, when I was working on really difficult projects, I started doing this. It's a good practice, anyway. Particularly if you're in any kind of leadership role, is take 10 minutes at the end of the day and debrief your day with yourself. What did I do? What did I learn? What did I do that worked? What did I do that didn't work? What did I observe? Was there anything in what I observed that I'm concerned about? For instance, in one project management team quietly changing dates. So, are there red flags in anything I observed? And if so,
Interesting.
write them down, record them. Everything you note like that, and it doesn't have to be more than 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Put a date on it for your own understanding and potentially for evidence. But I never had to give evidence, and
I
I
mean,
hope
but
no, and I hope nobody ever does who listens to this. But it's a good thing to be prepared.
yeah, always. And,
And
and it's interesting to kind of reflect back on a daily basis. And
I
because many
think
times we go to bed and I don't even know what happened the day after.
that's
And
how you grow,
mm,
is by reflecting. I think reflecting and then saying, okay, how does that inform how I'm going to
uh,
conduct myself the following day?
oh boy, you're blue screening me. So, oh wow, I need to start doing so many of those. Paying attention to the ethics elements of whatever I am, because yeah, I barely pay attention to. And at the end of the day, I try to do like an appreciation practice here and there when I remember. But at the end of the day, it's also important to like, what happened today? What did I do? What did I see? What happened? And it's, I mean, I take it on project wise when you're working, but life wise as well. I think it has lots of implications. And I mean, oh boy, we already are over time. But some last recommendations that you would give the audience before we start to say goodbyes?
I think I've kind of done it.
You gave
Yeah,
quite a bit. I
but
was like,
but I think that last piece is something that I would recommend to everybody is take some time to reflect on your day, reflect
yeah,
on what you learned, because and to have that as your mindset that you're always learning something. I mean, I worked at projects where the technology didn't necessarily interest me, or they were horrible projects, troubled projects. You learn more sometimes on those.
hmm,
So if you go into everything you do with this, I'm learning.
yeah,
And there are lots of things you can do out in the world that make you a better tester, that make you a better collaborator, that make you a better human being, if you like,
uh huh.
to work with others. Maybe you're doing volunteer work, or whatever, or working with your kids or training your dog. I mean, there's just, you
Yeah,
know,
lots all sorts of activities. If
yeah.
I can synthesize it, it's on one hand reflect, always learn from reflections what happens around you, and keep like a human side on everything that you do.
And know your own ethical bottom line.
Oh, yeah, pay more attention. I have to take that into. Um, I take it personal. I haven't done that enough. Now that you bring it, it's like, oh, oh, okay, well, uh, Fiona. Now, just to kind of like close it up a little bit, if people want to learn more what you are doing, what you are going to be presenting, or what you're working on, where can people follow up with you,
I'm still on Twitter,
or whatever the
partly
name is
because
now?
well, yeah, whatever it is. Partly because there's some other groups that I'm really interested in that are on it outside the professional groups. I'm back on. I'm starting to ramp up on Blue
Blue
Sky.
Sky.
Yeah,
We all are.
I have a website, but it's horrible at the moment. It's ancient design, and I really need to throw it out and start a new one. But there are resources on there. There are links to articles I've written,
I'll
uh,
ask you for the links. I'll try to put them on the notes of this interview.
and yeah, and on LinkedIn there are a few things. There's a webinar or so that I've done, and a talk, and so on. So you
Look,
can always get in touch with me on LinkedIn.
uh huh.
Um, I'll connect, and you're happy.
Happy to
I'm happy to connect with people by email.
add Fiona on LinkedIn. If you can see it there under her in the bottom of the screen, you can reach out to her, contact, and learn a lot of this experience because it's beautiful all that you have been doing, and uh, that perspective. It's the first time that I see it like from that side. You're bringing some topics that I'm like even a little bit worried that I have not paid enough attention to. But yeah, definitely everybody check check in with Fiona, touch base, ask her um, any or sort of interesting questions that you can think of after this human side conversation, ethical side conversation. I love it, Fiona. Thank you very much.
Thank
It
you.
was such an awesome talk.
It was fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, there you have it. I even got shivers like from all the learning. Uh, well, this is Agile Testing Days 2024 reporting from Potsdam, Germany. We had Fiona Charles. Thank you, Fiona.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. We'll be bringing more awesome people, presenters, and well, long live testers from. I love to have these experiences. I'm still blown up, but we'll be back with more. Stay tuned. This is just the first one of today, and we'll be back in a moment. Adios. Adios, Fiona. Take care.
Adios, everybody.
And out.